the music right there, and let's get everything going. Give me one quick second while I stop sharing my screen. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ricky Bias. If you are new here, hi, my name is Ricky Bias. And Janine Crockey is with me as well. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if you haven't, if this is your first time, welcome. Janine and I, every now and then, we do these webinars to help people out, just to throw information out there. And sharing is caring. That's weird saying that after 2020, right? So maybe not so much, but anyway, Janine and myself, between us, we have about 42 to 44 years of experience together, right? So making sure that we help people out. Now Janine, she is currently the HR director for Marine Fasteners, but she also works with me on leadership initiatives and 9box and a lot of the cool things that we're going to talk about here. Janine, you want to say hi real quick so people know you're real?
I'm real. I'm here. Hi.
And I promise she's not AI. I promise. I mean, I don't know if any of you saw what happened on the news lately with Disney. There was a video out showing the castle that was on fire, and it really turned like it's a big issue. And oh, Janine, those glasses. Sorry. So yeah. So anyway,
I was being AI.
is that what it is? Okay, got it. All right. I see a lot of folks. I see Nudie. I see Aaron. Both of them are really brave having the cameras on. Nudie is in Orlando. Aaron, you're all the way from Virginia, right?
Maryland.
Maryland. I've known you for like 15 years, and I always get that wrong.
You've literally been to the neighborhood and you still get it wrong.
I still don't know. I mean, well, you know that I plan some things and I still get that wrong.
This doesn't surprise me, really, knowing
See,
Ricky
there
for
you
as
go.
long as I have.
I'm glad I'm consistent. I'm glad I'm consistent. All right, folks, that said, we only have an hour, so we're gonna go ahead and jump just right in. So just give me one quick second while I'll get my presentation up and running. Hold on. There we go. And I hope as soon as you logged in, you should have seen the note that says this conversation is being recorded. So please understand this entire presentation is being recorded for use later on. But folks, leadership, let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. All right. So leadership, let me explain to you, because I know if I ask you about leadership and I ask you to give me your definition, everybody's going to have different definitions, right? But in my 22 years of doing this, I've learned if leadership is anything, it's exactly this, right? So make believe your organization is this building you see right here, okay? And your job within the organization is equivalent to your seat in the floor. So if you just started with the organization, you're going to start right here at the bottom floor. I'm having a hard time with it. You're going to start right here at the bottom floor, right? So when you start on the bottom floor, right, making believe this building is your organization, you're starting at the beginning, you're starting at the bottom, and you can, if you look outside the window, you're only going to see across the street. As you get promoted in the organization, the higher up you go, it looks like I'm in an elevator, the higher up you go in the organization, right? The higher up you go in the building. So the higher up you go, you look out the window, you get to see more of the horizon above and beyond the buildings you normally would see on the first floor. And you're able to see that horizon where the people at the bottom are not able to see. So if you get to the very, very top of the building, you look outside the window, it looks just like this. When you look outside, you see the river, I mean, the water, you see the other buildings, and you see some mountains in the background. Now, leadership comes down to just this. If you are able to see the mountains all the way over the river and through the woods and through the cities, if you're able to see, oh, hold on, got it. Let me take this out. Got it. If you're able to see that the mountain over there, that means that if you can have your employees at the bottom of the floor who cannot see past across the street, if you're able to convince them, you're able to lead them and influence them to follow you through those mountains, although they cannot see it, you have done your job as a leader. At the end of the day, that's what that is. But what we're talking about today, we're going to talk about the different leadership styles that are out there and how those different leadership styles can help you in an organization, for you to develop that leadership to make sure you hit those goals later on. Because everybody knows as soon as somebody leaves, gets fired, or gets hit by a bus, I hate to say that, a lot of organizations are scrambling. So what Janine and I are going to talk about today is how to set up a process that way in case somebody leaves, you're always ready to go. That said, Janine, this one's for you. And want to know how I know? Because her face is right there. Oh, so cute. All right, Janine, you get the comment.
So most of you, depending on your employment and your position, are probably familiar with the different types of leadership style. We're not going to spend too much time talking about each one. Again, this is a topic we could do an entire workshop on, but we are going to just do a general overview of some of the leadership types, and you'll probably recognize the characteristics very well. Keep in mind that leaders develop over time based on their personality, based on their audience, based on their company culture, what their type of leadership will be. And most of the time, a good leader, in my professional opinion, will teeter-totter or toggle between several different types depending on the need. Ricky, if you want to go ahead and change the slide for me, that would be great. So even if you're not overly familiar with Star Wars, I know Ricky's a huge fan, so he just loves Darth Vader, right? Love-hate relationship. But you can probably imagine what an autocratic leadership is just because of the fact that Darth Vader is there. This leader is the one that holds all the power and makes all the decisions. This can be effective when a quick decision is needed to be made, or when employees lack experience to be a part of the decision-making process. Unfortunately, though, it can also mean that you have employees that are not very happy, they don't feel engaged, and you can miss out on some opportunities for betterment or for originality. Next slide, please. For those of you who watched Mad Men, you might be familiar with Peggy Olson. She is an example of a democratic leadership. And just the word democratic probably tells a lot of us what this type of leader does. This type of leader tends to make decision-making by consensus, very much involving the employees in the process, getting their feedback. They're committed to the workforce, they're committed to the employees. The employees feel very highly valued and very involved. However, this can be a very time-consuming process. When a quick decision is needed, it can also be a very negative process. So next slide, please, Ricky. Thank you. Laissez-faire, Jon Snow, Game of Thrones. Ladies, we know who he is, even if we didn't watch that show, probably, am I right? But he demonstrated laissez-faire leadership. This is where a leader provides very little direction or guidance to employees. This is especially effective when your employees are highly experienced, highly motivated. It allows them to do their own thing and get their job done. Where you can see some challenges with this type of leadership, though, is it can lead to a lack of accountability, and it can lead to some disengagement. Moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about servant leadership. Olivia Pope from Scandal is a great example of this type of leadership. Again, this is a leadership style that focuses on employees first, their well-being, their growth. It's a very empathetic and caring leadership style, full of compassion. This type of leadership style, though, can be challenging in certain organizations, especially if they are very focused on results or need to get things done quickly. Now, next slide, please. Transformational leadership. My son, who goes to the University of North Florida, loves Monkey D. Luffy and One Piece, and he's so excited that I figured out a way to incorporate that into this presentation. Transformational leadership is one where the leader really motivates employees, inspires the employees. They have a shared vision. There's an emphasis on communication, empowerment, teamwork. They're leading by example. This can lead to a lot of goals being achieved, but it can be time-consuming, highly time-consuming for both the leader but the employee. A lot of times in transformational leadership, you're taking your employee out of their comfort zone into what I like to call their opportunity zone, and that takes time. And then, of course, Ricky, thank you. Transactional leadership. I think most of us probably know Dr. Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang at this juncture. Transactional, sorry, having a hard time speaking. Leadership is a style where the leader focuses on a specific goal and rewards. There's rewards and punishments basically in this type of leadership. It can, however, lack motivation. Employees can really not be allowed to get creative, and you can have a missed opportunity if you're overly focused on one goal, which if you've ever watched Big Bang, you can see how the personality of Dr. Sheldon Cooper sometimes doesn't allow him to see something outside of what is in his mindset already. Next slide, please. So obviously each style has its pros and cons, as I very quickly walked us through. And just looking at the images on the screen currently, not me, I'm just happen to be hanging out with my friends, you can probably think of some positives and some negatives for each of the characters that you recognize and are familiar with. At this time, we'd like you to participate in a poll. Ricky, if you want to get that set up. And just go ahead and let us know which leadership trait or style you tend to follow.
Go ahead, folks, and don't be afraid. Go ahead and pick which one. There's no right or wrong one. This is just which one you resonate with the most. So we got about 50% done. Almost there. Keep going, folks. We got about.
Keep in mind, as we said at the beginning, you're going to probably teeter-totter between a few, depending on the situation, your company culture, your team at the time.
That's right. We got about 5. There you go. Two more, folks. We got 12. I'm going to kill this here in about 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's share these results. Everybody seems to like transformational leadership, Janine.
I'm not surprised by this, actually. I think there's a lot of reasons we're seeing popularity with that right now, especially post-COVID and with the amount of generations we have in the workforce, which we could spend a whole nother lunch and learn setup on.
Now I got a quick question.
I'm actually surprised not to see anybody in the autocratic or the laissez-faire or transactional. Yeah. We do have a little bit of a smaller group though from when we would normally do this type of survey, but very interesting, most definitely.
So folks, remember, everybody has each one of these particular styles. It really depends on the situation that you're in, on what's going to happen with that style. So this interesting that nobody in laissez-faire, nobody in autocratic, which is okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Each situation is going to dictate that. Excellent. All right, folks. All right, next, coming right up, we are going to start looking into the modern leadership development. Now, folks, let me say this. When it comes to leadership training, obviously, there's a lot of options out there. You can send your employees or your leaders to a training seminar. You can send them to a conference. But what happens in training and development, for those of you who are in training and development, you need to have what's called transfer of knowledge. And what transfer of knowledge is that once you have that training out there, you have to ensure that your leaders, your employees, the people you send to this training, that not only do they understand what the training is, but you create a culture for the employees and the leaders to actually exhibit what they learned. That's the key, right? Because you can write that check, spend $5,000 on a training, but you have to ensure you create a culture where they can exhibit those traits. Just think about how many times have you conducted training in HR and your employees go back to the office, go back to their departments, and they come back 2 months later, my boss says, that's not going to happen here. You need to have a more strategic conversation. But let's take a step back. Let's talk about what's going to work today. And you're going to find this one a little bit like, okay, Ricky, that's obvious. But folks, you need to get your leaders some coaching. And I'm not talking about any coaching. I mean coaching. Now, you see who's there. That's Andy Reid. He used to coach for the Cincinnati. Listen to me. For the Kansas City Chiefs. Right? So that's the coach.
What was in your coffee this morning, my friend?
I don't know, man. I really wish it was something better than what I had. So yeah. So he is the coach of the Chiefs, and his team loves him. And the reason his team loves him is because he doesn't lead by fear. He doesn't lead by just that fear that somebody's going to lose their job. He actually cares about the team. He plays around with them. He jokes with them, but he takes care of what's important for them. Folks, Janine and I have been saying this for years. If you take care of what's important for your employees will take care of what's important for you. So you, as a business leader and HR, you need to be able to give your employees, your leadership, that coaching they need, as well as mentoring. Now, can anybody want to jump in? What is the main difference between coaching and mentoring? I want to see if anybody can answer this question. What is the main difference
You
between
can
them?
go ahead and write in the chat if you want. I do monitor the chat during our conversation, so we will address any comments or questions in there throughout the time we have.
Excellent. So mentoring, so coaching is transactional, right? Here's what you need to do: make a left, make a right, adjust. Mentoring is more of a higher 10,000-foot view. Mentoring is more personal. Mentoring takes a look at not just the employee, it takes a look at the person. Where coaching stops when the person clocks out mentally and goes home, mentoring continues on to make sure that the employee, the leader who you are developing, they are making sure that the employee, the leader, has all the supports at home as well as what they do at work. So coaching, mentoring, two different things, but albeit still helps out. Now,
so Juliana put in the chat, coaching is providing basic information, tips, and training.
go ahead, Julia.
Perfect.
I mean, yeah, but that's exactly it. But Janine and everybody else, there's one thing that I found that discovered a couple of years ago, and I discovered. I'm not saying discovered it for everybody, just for me. It's a few years ago. I found the concept of reverse mentoring. And I don't know if you know what this is, but I found this really interesting. Everybody knows that there's 5 generations in the workforce right now. There's the Gen X, there's the baby boomers, millennials, Gen Zs, you name it, they're out there. And when I found out about this whole process, I decided to implement it with one of my clients, and it worked beautifully. Here's what happens. I had a client that he was having a hard time making sure that his leadership, people he was developing, it's making sure that they understood today's lingo. As you know, there's a lot of different apps, more and more technologies come out every day that makes it difficult for, at least for me, for Gen Xers to use those tools. So what this process is, and what I help my client do, and we got him I'm a coaching, we got him mentoring, but reverse mentoring is when you team somebody up with somebody who's newer to the organization, younger. I mean, obviously, we got to be careful with the age thing, but it's somebody who's more in tune with what's happening in the world today when it comes to apps and social media, and make sure that those two employees mesh well together. The younger employee teaches the older employee about the newest tips and tricks, and that's something you can learn, right? But the older employees would teach the younger employees the wisdom that they have. That's something you can't get at school. So I've seen some organizations.
I just want to interject. Some of you might not be familiar with the term reverse mentoring, but if your organization has a mentoring program, depending on how they have that established or what their criteria or lack of criteria potentially is for mentoring, they could be utilizing a reverse mentoring process without calling it reverse mentoring. We have seen, I would say, probably the last 10 years, but more specifically the last 6 to 8 years, more of this reverse mentoring concept being ingrained into mentoring programs. And I'm sure that your HR team is not necessarily calling it reverse mentoring. They're probably calling it mentoring. So keep that in mind. If you are in a position where you're looking to create a mentor program, highly, highly recommend a reverse mentoring process and program. And Ricky and I can talk with you more about that. But I just want to make that clear that reverse mentoring could just be called mentoring at this stage because of the amount of different generations we have within the workforce.
And not only that, some organizations only use coaching, some only use mentoring or the reverse factor, but a really good plan is one that has all three. You have to have coaching, you have to have mentoring, you have to have reverse mentoring in addition to any training you send your leaders to. Remember, the coaching and mentoring, all that is to make sure that whatever skill set your leaders learn, they actually bring it back to the office and they're employing it properly to make sure that it's bringing the value to the organization that you paid for your leaders to go out and do. So these are things, again, Janine and I can talk to you more about it offline. These are great traits. So successful leadership development programs, there's a million of them out there, right? And the one that I have found that works the best, I call it the LIT program, the Leader in Training program. So we did something similar at See Yourself Improvement. Kayla's on here. She can attest to that as well. But let me tell you what a leadership in training program is. At the end of the day, it's when you, the organization, you decide to put a school of thought together to make sure that you develop their leaders from within. You give them the tools that they need. You invest time and effort in them. That way they can turn back around and use those same skills for your organization. So it is a 12-month program. And not anybody can get into this program, right? There is a rigorous interview process. So anybody that will like any leader potential that will love to be a part of this process, they have to apply. We have to interview them. We have to make sure that they have the right skill sets, not only the right skill sets, but the right foundations to build on those skill sets that would help the organization.
Hey, Ricky, why would we want to interview them? Can you explain why we can't just let everybody into the group?
Because we want to make sure that the people who want to be a leader, they're in it for the right reasons, right? And they know the good, the bad, and the ugly about being a leader. Outside of this program, anybody that wants to apply or wants to get into a leadership position, yeah, they see the title and they see the money. There's a lot more involved in that. So we want to make sure that the right people are applying and they're doing it for the right reasons, because it's not, as you guys know, it's not all sunshines and roses. It really isn't, right? So that's what you have to have in the rigorous interview process. So students meet once a month. So what does that mean for the organization? That means that the organization, normally the training and development department, they put together a syllabus to where they meet with the students once a month for about 2 hours, and they learn the different fundamentals on how to be a leader, effective communications, delegating, time management, all of those things that really, really resonate, that really would give the students the foundation on how to be influential. Not only that, there's a final project. So 6 months, I'm into it. Once all these students are learning all these different things that the organization would teach them, what I did, we got together with the leadership of the call center, and we told them, hey, what issues do you have that could be solved right now? What is the number one thing that's happening in the call center that we can solve? We package that up. You give that issue to the students, and for the rest of the 6 months, the students work to make sure they solve that problem. At the end, they do a final presentation to all executive leadership, which does several things. A, it gives them face time with executive leadership. They get to see who are the up and coming leaders and how they get to interact. And B, if they solve that problem, they're going to implement that problem. They have an invested interest in continuing on with the organization. Just think about it. Somebody has been with the organization for 15 years. It's a process that fixed an issue 15 years ago. How proud would a student be or a director be if they were involved in that process? And once everything is all said and done, they get put in a talent pool, for 6 months. What does that mean? You build a profile for the employees. When you build that profile for the employee, they finish that program, they have their certificate, you put them in as many leadership positions as possible so they can broaden their portfolio. And then we keep a profile on them. When a position comes up, when somebody leaves, somebody gets fired, whatever the case may be, you don't have to interview. You go into the pool that you know already checked all those boxes, and all you have is a chemistry meeting and you put them in. Folks, it takes time, it takes effort, but it works. If you want to develop a class, you want to develop a program to where your leaders are top notch, this is how you have to do it. Now, one of the pushback that I get, the biggest pushback is, Ricky, why am I going to invest all this time and effort, right? What can I have them sign a contract that they're not going to leave after 2 years? You can do that. I'd rather not go that route. because you want to be able to train them in such a way that they're not going to want to leave, right? And if they want to leave, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. They're still going to remember you as the organization that taught them everything they know.
Remember what Ricky said at the beginning. If you show your employees that you care about them and what you need from them, they will do the work for you. They will care about you. They will have that desire to move forward and to do better and to do more. In essence, this program is helping to create a succession plan within your organization with a lot of work, but also very organically.
That's right. This one's yours, ma'am.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and organizational growth. Ricky, you can go to the next slide. Now, 9-box for some of you might be completely new concept. You don't know what this is. You're crossing your eyes right now looking at it. And for others of you, you might be somewhat familiar. So generally speaking, obviously you can tell by the image that the 9-box is a 3x3 matrix. You have a horizontal and a vertical axis. One is performance, as you can see on the horizontal, and then one is future potential, as you can see on the vertical. Now, I know what I'm about to say may shock some of you if you've been in a presentation with me before where I'm constantly saying, don't put employees in a box, think outside of the box, get out of the box. What I'm going to tell you with this is get in the box. Yep. And what I love about the 9-box talent grid is that it really forces managers to really think about their employees. Really get in the weeds of their employees' performance and their employees' potential. And how many times during our performance review process are your managers only thinking about performance? They're not thinking about potential. How many times have you gotten an employee review back and you have a manager who says, all my people are great, they're wonderful, nobody's doing anything wrong? The 9-box talent grid forces the manager, forces HR to get into the weeds of that a little bit more and figure out where are opportunities, where are development needs. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Ricky. So if you take a look at this middle row, which is now highlighted, you'll see that at the bottom, we have average performer. This is low potential, moderate performance. In the middle, we have core player. This is moderate potential, moderate performance. And then in the top, we have high potential, but moderate performance. We won't spend too much time talking about what this means necessarily in today's lunch and learn, but please know that this is a workshop that both Ricky and myself have completed multiple times if you have an interest in bringing this to your organization. People who are falling into this middle column really should be able to see a promotion within 3 years. Now, that doesn't just happen because Tinkerbell flew in and waved her magic wand around. That happens because the manager, the employee, and your HR or L&D department, depending on how you're structured, worked to make that happen. So that's the number one caution I have if you're using 9-box, especially if you haven't or your leaders haven't been properly trained on this talent grid. This doesn't happen by itself. People don't just jump from one box to another. There's a lot of work that goes into that. Go ahead to the next slide, please, Ricky. Thank you. And then if we take a look at the right column, we will see that we have a solid performer, low potential, high performance. We have a high performer, moderate potential, high performance, star, high potential, high performance. And if you really take some thought after this meeting is over and you think about this terminology, moderate potential, high performance, low potential, high performance, put on your HR hats or your development hats or give Ricky and I a call and we'll walk you through. These really are very specific descriptions for very important reasons. People in this column in one of these boxes can normally see 2 promotions within a 5-year span. Now, again, that does not happen because Tinkerbell flew in from Orlando, if you're not already here, waved some pixie dust and everything happened. This takes a lot of work from your development or your HR team, from the employee, him or herself, and their manager. That's why it is so important to use a development plan and really have some foundation and training behind a 9-box talent grid if you are going to use it. This 9-box talent grid is becoming more and more popular across HR teams as everyone is starting to move towards more strategy with HR. We've seen this shift in the last 15 years. We're seeing it now in the last few to higher levels across multiple positions and levels, not just your senior level HR performers. The reason why this is becoming so much more popular is it helps with succession planning, with training and coaching, and gives you a holistic view of your organization. This is extremely important if your organization has more than one location, if your organization has more than one division or department where you're not necessarily sure. Your next HR manager may be working for your organization somewhere, and because they sit in a different country or different state, you don't know of their existence. This 9-box program, when rolled out across an organization, can help you really build a talent pool across your entire organization, not just one department, not just one division, not just one location.
And if I can jump in real quick. So we talked about the column to the right. We talked about the column in the middle. But what about this column right here? The one right here, the one I'm looking at right there. So if you put people in that first column, at the bottom, low potential, low performance, right? Obviously not good for the role. Then you have the middle, moderate potential, low performance. They're inconsistent, right? Still, you got to put them on a PIP, make sure that they do what they need to do. But what about this box right here? Potential gem, high potential, low performance. This box is special. The reason that box is special because 9 times out of 10, if you put somebody in the top left box, they're in the wrong role.
You're putting a square peg into a round hole.
Mhm.
A lot of times what I have noticed when someone is in this box is they have not been treated well by the organization. They have maybe had a lot of managerial changes and never been considered for the job that in some cases they're actually doing. This column really needs to be paid attention to, not necessarily because the employee needs to be moved out of the organization or even necessarily put on a performance improvement plan, as Ricky said, but there's usually a story behind why people are in this box.
Yep.
And a lot of times you can help to mitigate or resolve that. I want to also take this time before I turn things back over to Ricky to remind people that if you're using a performance improvement plan as a checklist item, as the last thing you need to do and show that you did before you terminate an employee, then you're using it the wrong way. The performance improvement plan really should be thought of as more of a coaching positive. And the employee has skin in that game, but so does the manager. You cannot hand off a performance improvement plan, review it with an employee, and then wash your hands of the situation and walk away.
Right.
You need to have set expectations for both the employee and the manager in that process. And that employee hopefully will start to make some headway and do more of what they are needing to do for their position and for the organization. Be careful. I've seen this 1,000,005 times. A manager doesn't manage that process properly, and the manager is never held accountable for what they have responsibility wise in that process. And then an employee is being walked out of the door. So really, depending on your function, HR, leadership, manager of a department, make sure you're following that process and communicating that process properly.
Right.
If you are able to develop and use a PIP properly, you should see more people stay afterwards, not term afterwards. And if you're seeing a lot of terms afterwards, take a look at your process, take a look at the departments that they're in, the manager that they have, but then also you might even need to review your interview and your training processes for that job. You might be hiring a lot of people that should not be in that position, or you might have a manager who's not training and managing the departments properly, or you might have a problem in HR. There's a lot of factors there.
Yeah, definitely are a lot of factors. And look, at the end of the day, folks, when it comes for a PIP, it's how you launch it, how you develop it is key. If you develop it and launch it as the final nail in the coffin, that's exactly how they're going to take it. But if you develop it and launch it with the employees' success in mind, they're going to take it differently, because I know that gets a bad rap these days, but that's a whole different webinar. So let's talk about creating a culture of accountability, because coaching is good, mentoring is good, reverse coaching is good. You spend all that time to put people through the 9-box process, which, by the way, if you've done it properly, it is a fun process to watch. You got people arguing back and forth for their employees why they should be in that box or this box, and it's really fun to watch. It's also gut wrenching to watch, depending on the different personalities involved. But it really is a good process. You get all those things. Remember what I said about creating the culture where that will succeed. This is where creating a culture of accountability comes in. And the first thing that needs to happen, folks, your expectations need to be crystal clear. Not clear, crystal clear. Never, ever assume the leader that you're developing knows exactly what's expected of them. Never assume or never say they should have known better. You have to over communicate to ensure everybody who's receiving your message, whatever expectation that is, it is 110% clear. The same thing with transparency. Be honest with them. Don't lie to them. Don't lie to them. And this comes in especially when we're talking about layoffs, because I've had this happen quite a few times, where rumors of layoffs are going around, right? And people just flat out ask you, is there a layoff coming? Don't say no. If you know about it, don't say no. Just say, if there is or there isn't, that is information that that I cannot share at this time. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's perfectly okay, right? But the last thing you want to do is lie to your employees. So be as transparent as you possibly can. If you can talk about it, talk about it. If you can't talk about it, just say that you cannot talk about it. This one's key to me, right? When I used to work at Universal Studios years ago, and I'm talking about when Back to the Future was the ride of the century. One of the things I learned there is they gave us the opportunity to take ownership of an issue. Let me give you a great example. Somebody goes into the park, they have an ice cream cone they spent $10 for, it spills on them. I had the flexibility and the empowerment to go get that person another one, charge it to a different account as shrinkage, and give it to that employee, to that guest, without them asking. That is empowering your employees to take ownership of the situation. So that, what does that mean for your leaders? You have to have the backbone, and you have to have the courage of giving them the opportunity to own a process. More importantly, give them the opportunity to fail and learn from it. You have to be okay with that. Now, of course, they got to take some calculated risk, right? There has to be a process on why they decided to do what they need to do. But if you give them the ownership and you give them the opportunity to fail, it gives them real life examples, experience that they can use later on. But again, the mentoring and the coaching has to be there to walk them through it. Obviously, if they keep making the same mistakes over and over again, that's a whole different conversation that you need to have that has to do with discipline. But outside of that, if they learn their lesson, you've got to create that safe space for them. Feedback and support. Do not be afraid to be authentic with your leaders and let them know where they're doing great and where they're not doing great. And obviously, when they're not doing good, it shouldn't be beating them over the head. It should be a really heartfelt conversation about where they are, where they need to be, and what you're going to do to help them get there. Not a pip, right? This is way before a pip, but this is part of that coaching, and give them that support to actually move the ball across the goal. And then let them know what the consequences are. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong in letting them know, if you keep messing up and this keeps happening, here are some of those consequences. Again, you don't want to lead by that, right? You want to communicate it in a way that, look, I'm here to help you, but if this doesn't turn around, we're going to have to talk about what's going to happen if this doesn't go your way. There's nothing wrong with that conversation. If you've done your job right, and we get to have a conversation where the employee has to be separated, he or she should not be surprised with that conversation if you've done your job properly. And this one, just how I was saying with ownership, empower your leaders to make decisions, folks. Empower them. Give them that empowerment. There's nothing worse than an executive leader who keeps everything to him or herself, and they don't give the tools, give the flexibility to their employees to make a decision. Because what ends up happening there, they get paralyzed when the leader isn't there. What if the leader's on vacation? What if the leader is has a day off? You want to go on vacation knowing the people reporting up to you have the empowerment and the tools necessary to perform the duties of the organization without you there. Janine, anything else you wanted to add to that?
I think you said everything perfectly.
I know. I just wanted to hear you say it. It's okay though. It's all right. All right, folks, moving right along. We're about 12:42 because I want to leave some time for some questions, right? Let's talk about some conclusions. Okay, so at the end of the day, there are different leadership styles for different situations. Everybody has that specific leadership style, and you're good at one of them and you're okay at the others. You have to know which trigger to pull when. Coaching, mentoring, and reverse mentoring should be the three-legged stool for leadership development. You need to have all three. They're in a good process to make that happen. Implement the 9-box process to ensure continuity in leadership. Folks, this 9-box process takes a long time, and there is a process that has to go in each and every step of the way where wherever you put somebody in a specific box, specific column, whether you put them in a column where they get to get promoted 1 time in 3 years or 5 times and 2 times in 5 years, you want to be able to create a process to make that happen for them. Just how Janine says, Tinkerbell's not going to come in. What'd you say were her powder dust wand? Is that what you said?
Fairy dust.
Yeah.
Tinkerbell has fairy dust and a wand that has the fairy dust come out of it. You're going to have to watch the animated Peter Pan again pretty soon, I think.
Sure. Maybe that's what we should play next time, right? So you've got to be able to create a culture where that can happen for those employees. And obviously, create a culture of accountability by empowering your leaders to take ownership. Folks, this is easier said than done because this takes guts. It takes a backbone because what you're doing, if you put your leaders in a situation that they have to make decisions, that the result of that decision puts you as the leader of the organization on the front street in front of everybody else, is a daunting task. But here's the thing, consider this. Picture the leaders you have right now. And if you was not there today, or if you quit, are you comfortable in having that leader lead the organization? If the answer is no, you need this process. You have everybody you put in a leadership position. You have to be able to trust them to do what's best for the organization and take care of the employees. If you don't have that confidence that they will do that, then you will have to ask yourself, why are they in a leadership position?
So last year, I want to share this story because I think it's very telling on mindset. Last year, I went on a 2.5-week vacation with my family and we were in Europe. So basically 6 to 8 hours ahead of Florida Eastern Standard Time, depending on the day. Prior to that, I had arranged with my team for some items that they would have to focus on, back up if they needed to have another resource to confirm what they needed to do or their process was correct. My team was very nervous at first when I was leaving because I had not been gone for that long and they were very junior. I returned from vacation and everything went well. Everything was wonderful. I did not check email over that time I was gone, except for once. I did not get phone calls. I literally tapped out. I had a vacation, a true vacation. And when I downloaded with my team and they gave me the feedback that everything was great, that things went well, that they were so happy because at first they were stressed, I said to my team, had things not gone well, then I need to go to my boss and tell him to fire me. And my team looked at me very confused. And I explained, if I haven't developed you to a point where I can take a vacation and actually take a vacation, then I have not done my job. That is very different from a manager who says, oh, everything fell apart while I was gone. Great, they need me. Ha ha ha, screw them. That's not the type of manager you want. That's not a leader. So keep those things in mind as you're thinking about these processes. The goal is to develop. The goal is to have a succession plan. The goal is to be able to go away for 2 weeks and the world not collapse.
And to piggyback on that as well, and Kayla can attest to this as well. She's out there listening. When she and I worked together at Sears, whenever I went on vacation, I had full confidence in Kayla that she got the con. Here you go, she got the keys, and hardly ever called me, which I loved it. Right? There was some situation I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. If you worked in a call center, you know exactly how that goes. But it's if you're the kind of leader, and I use that in air quotes, that you get a kick out the organization or the team falling apart when you're away, you're in the wrong role. You're in the wrong role. You need to be able to be okay with somebody else taking the realm and making sure that the organization is in great hands. I mean, otherwise, what's the point of having a vacation if you open the laptop? Now, I'm guilty because I'm a hypocrite too, because I go on vacation and I do open my laptop because I care for my team. I want to check in on them, make sure they have everything exactly how they need, but then I step back away. So definitely make sure that you leave your team with the tools necessary to succeed without you. That's the goal. All right. That said, folks, this is something Janine and I do for every organization. So if this is something you want to do, let us know. Give us a call. Something else that my organization does for 49 employees or below, we also have a tiered system HR service process that we can help your organization with. It's got HR audits. It's got different area, a different membership, a different service for the different goals you may have for your organization. So whether it's putting together your leadership processes, putting together a lit program, or even a 9-box, or just making sure you've got monthly questions and answers when it comes to HR, you can go ahead and just give us a call. And how can you do that? You can scan right there. Go ahead and scan that, and then we can schedule a session. So that said, before we say goodbye, we got 12 minutes, and that for Janine and I, at least for me, that's a dang record, because I can get long-winded, and I'm just surprised we made it this far and we're not rushing, right, Janine?
Yes.
Yeah. So do we have any questions as of right now? No questions at all? Really? Janine, anything else you want to add? Something's missing in here. Something else is missing.
Well, I would like to just reiterate to everybody that we definitely gave a very high level overview of processes that are very in-depth and detailed. So you might need to do some research or process more if you can't think of a question currently. Nuri is saying that we were super clear. So that's good, but keep in mind that we did very high level overview of very in-depth and detailed processes. So if you have questions, please do reach out to us. I've seen so many times where somebody is like, oh, I can roll that out. I saw the lunch and learn, I got it. And then they realize how much more is involved to properly do it. Please do not roll something out halfway. Do it 100% from the beginning. I almost said a different term, but I didn't. I caught myself.
Thank you.
These processes take time, they take training, and they don't happen in an hour.
And actually,
we have a comment.
Yeah, Shayla has a question.
Sometimes you inherit unmotivated leaders. What recommendations can you provide to motivate and assist them to get on track?
Want to take that one?
So,
because I have a thought.
What's your thought, Ricky?
So here's the thing, right? It's every organization you go to, and you're just starting out there, you are the new sheriff in town, so people are going to test you, right? But sometimes you do inherit leaders, and those leaders may have been operating with in a laissez-faire type of environment for the longest time. So what I would do in that situation, right? It's you don't want to lead with an iron fist, and you don't want to let the person know, you know what, as of tomorrow, this is going to change. Your gift of gab has to come out, especially if you're taking over for a leader that's kept that organization running laissez-faire for the past 15 years. It's kind of hard to turn that ship around. The best thing for you to do is to have a heart-to-heart with that leader and let them know that you fully understand what has happened before. You fully understand what has led up to this point. You fully understand what their job environment was like before. But then so once you establish that you understand that, and the employee feels heard, then you have to communicate what your expectations are, and you got to hold them to it. So you need to have that heart to heart on what your expectations are going to be, and that you understand it's going to be tough to turn things around, and give them a little bit of time to turn things around and give them that opportunity. They're going to make mistakes. That's okay. If they are giving a good faith effort, then go ahead and work with them. But if they're like, absolutely not, I'm not going to do it, you have to give them a choice. Either you need them and they help you move the ball across that goal line, or they get promoted to customer. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what needs to happen. But you've got to give them the opportunity to be heard, and what you're going to do to help them carry that ball across the field. So let me
So
see,
I would
Shelly,
add to
got it.
that. I would add to that also, if you're newer to the organization, what is their actual role versus their title? I've seen in a lot of cases where people have been with an organization for a long time, the management or supervisor or lead team has never really been empowered to manage, to lead, to make decisions. And so you can have a lot of people with a manager or a supervisor or even a director title who really don't function at those levels. They're functioning as a worker bee with a high title. And it might be that the unmotivated leader is actually the untrained, an unprepared leader, and they need some help in that area, which could end up making them a very successful manager, leader, director in time. But it could also end up being that you have a round peg in a square hole, and you need to make other adjustments.
And Zach,
We have
actually,
a few new
yeah.
messages. Thank you for the information. Thank you, very helpful. Having learned about the 9-box grid last year at the Worth Leadership Seminar, I can attest to the success it can bring out in a team, not only on a project, employees, how much time you spend on reaching the potential, but spending the time you can continue to develop your stars. One of the best ways to roll out a 9-box program as well is sometimes to do it in layers. Train your high level to do their direct reports, potentially depending on your structure, their direct reports to 9-box, their immediate direct reports. I would strongly discourage you from rolling out a 9-box talent review for the first time ever with the entire organization at once. That is true if you are 500, 5,000, or even 50 employees. So please do keep that in mind. Great point, Janine. Thank you, Juliana. Thanks, Janine. You're welcome, Shelly. Any other questions?
You're reading
comments?
your own call outs?
Because they realize how amazing I am.
I mean, I know, because you came out with the with the fairy, what is it? Fairy dirt? Fairy dust.
Why can't you remember? What is so difficult of this? You even live in Orlando and you can't remember.
Actually, I go to Disney twice a month
dust?
and I still can't get it. It's okay.
But in all reality, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. The reason why Ricky and I do these things together is because our dynamic is very different. Our responses can give you two sides of the coin sometimes. Ricky tends to go down road A and I tend to go down road B. And sometimes, more often than not, I'm the correct one. No, in reality, there's normally different ways to look at things and situations. Nothing is cookie cutter when you're working with employees. So you cannot make assumptions. You have to find the root cause, the root challenge, the root issue, and move forward from there.
All right, folks, there's one thing missing. What everybody's here. Here you go. Your SHRM recertification credit 24-DE62W. Go ahead and use this. This is already pre-approved for 1 PDC credit through SHRM. All right, folks. Anybody else?
Gila says thank you to both, and I do apologize if I mispronounced your name. I think she wanted to make sure you felt included, Ricky.
she probably is. Man, Ricky, nobody's giving him props. That's exactly what happened. Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate it. Hopefully the check don't bounce. All right, folks. That said, thank you very much for your time. Please keep your eyes open for the next event that's going to happen next month. That's going to go out here in a couple of days, but you're going to see a lot more of these for Janine and I. Again, thank you very much. Any questions, go ahead, scan that QR code, set up a meeting, and then we can have a conversation about how we can help your organization develop leaders. That said,
Shelly has a question about if the video can be shared for people who are not able to attend.
You know what? I can do that because I'm going to actually put this on YouTube. So once this is on YouTube, I will share it to anybody who attended today. But yes, Shelly, we will definitely do that.
I will also share it on my LinkedIn. So if you're not connected to me, please do so that you can be sure to share that to see that as well.
Roger that. All right, folks, that said, you got 3 minutes back on the clock. Don't spend it all in one place. Y'all have a good one. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.